Have you ever walked through a park at night and felt like someone was watching you? Have you ever heard footsteps behind you but when you turned around, nobody was there? Well, what if I told you that feeling you get? That creepy feeling that makes your skin crawl. What if I told you it's not just in your head? Today, I'm going to tell you 5 true stories that happened in parks just like the one near your house. These are not made-up stories. These are not fake. These actually happened to real people who were just trying to enjoy a nice day outside. But something went very, very wrong. So turn off the lights, get comfortable, and whatever you do, don't pause this video if you hear something outside your window. It's probably nothing. Probably. Story 1. The man who watched her run. Let me tell you about Jennifer Martinez. She was 28 years old and lived in Portland, Oregon. Jennifer loved running. She was training for her very first marathon, and she was so excited about it. Every single morning, she would wake up at 5:30 a.m., put on her running shoes, and head to Riverside Park. Riverside Park is huge. It has 40 acres of beautiful trails next to the river. In the early morning, it's usually empty. Just Jennifer, the birds singing, and the sun slowly coming up. It was perfect. Or at least, that's what Jennifer thought. The first weird thing happened in September 2018. It was a Monday morning, and Jennifer was running her usual path. She had been running for about 10 minutes when she got this strange feeling. You know that feeling when you just know someone is looking at you? Like when you can feel eyes on the back of your head? That's what Jennifer felt. She stopped running and looked around. Nobody was there. The park was empty. She could hear birds chirping and the river flowing, but no people. She told herself she was being silly and started running again, but the feeling didn't go away. In fact, it got stronger. For the next 2 weeks, every time Jennifer went running, she felt like someone was watching her. She started changing her route. She started running at different times, but the feeling was always there. Always. Then came that Tuesday morning in October. Jennifer woke up and looked outside. The fog was so thick she couldn't even see the street from her window. It was like the whole world was covered in a white blanket. She thought about not going for her run, but she had a training schedule to follow. She had to run 10 miles that day. So she put on her brightest running clothes, grabbed her phone, and headed to the park. The fog in the park was even worse. Jennifer could only see about 10 feet in front of her. The trees looked like ghosts in the white mist. It was so quiet. No birds, no wind, just the sound of her feet hitting the path and her own breathing. She had been running for about a mile when she heard it. Breathing, but not her breathing. This was different, heavier, rougher, and it was coming from behind her. Jennifer's heart started beating faster. She told herself it was just another runner. Portland had lots of runners. Someone else was probably training too. But something felt wrong, really wrong. She sped up. The breathing behind her sped up too. She slowed down. It slowed down. It was matching her exactly. Step for step, breath for breath. Jennifer was scared now, really scared. Her hands were shaking as she pulled out her phone. She pretended to check the time, but really she turned on her camera. She held the phone up high, like she was taking a selfie, but she angled it so she could see behind her. What she saw made her blood turn cold. There was a man about 30 feet behind her. He was wearing all black clothes and a black ski mask that covered his whole face. But here's the really creepy part. He wasn't running normally. He was moving in this weird crouch, like an animal stalking its prey. And every time Jennifer moved her head even a little bit, he would duck behind a tree. Jennifer's mind was racing. This wasn't another runner. This was someone following her, hunting her. Her hands were shaking so bad she almost dropped her phone. But then she noticed something that made everything even worse. The way the man moved, the shape of his shoulders, the way he held his hands, it was familiar. She had seen this person before. Not just in the park. She had seen him at her gym. She remembered now. A man who always seemed to be using the machine next to hers. She had seen him at the coffee shop she went to every day after work, always sitting a few tables away. She had even seen him at the grocery store near her apartment, always in the same aisle as her. Jennifer did the smartest thing she could think of. She called 911 right there, putting it on speaker so the man could hear. 911. What's your emergency? The operator said. My name is Jennifer Martinez, she said loudly. I'm in Riverside Park on the river trail near mile marker 3. There's a man in a black ski mask following me. He's about 30 feet behind me. Please send help right now. The second she said this, she heard footsteps running, but this time, they were running away from her. Fast. The man was gone. Jennifer kept the 911 operator on the phone and ran to the parking lot where she met the police. She showed them the video from her phone. The image was blurry because of the fog, but you could clearly see the man in black following her. The police searched the park with dogs. 3 hours later, they found him. He was hiding in a maintenance shed near the playground. His name was Marcus Webb. He was 34 years old and didn't have a job. When the police searched his backpack, they found things that made Jennifer sick to her stomach. He had zip ties, the plastic kind that police use as handcuffs. He had a roll of duct tape. He had a hunting knife. And he had a notebook. The notebook is the part that still gives Jennifer nightmares to this day. Inside were pages and pages of notes about her. He knew what time she woke up. He knew her running routes. He had written down what she wore each day. Monday, pink shirt, black shorts. Tuesday, gray hoodie, blue leggings. Wednesday, white tank top, black shorts. He knew where she lived. He had drawn a map of her apartment building and marked which window was hers. He knew where she worked. He had her work schedule written down. He even knew what kind of car she drove and her license plate number. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was that he had been watching her for 3 months. 3 whole months. Every morning when she thought she was alone in that park, he was there, watching, learning, planning. The police found more at his apartment. He had hundreds of photos of Jennifer. Photos of her running. Photos of her at the gym. Photos of her getting coffee. Photos taken through her apartment window. He had been building up to this day. The foggy day when nobody would see. The perfect day to finally make his move. But here's the thing that really messed Jennifer up. The police found 6 other notebooks in Marcus Webb's apartment. Each one about a different woman. All runners. All using the same park. 2 of those women had been reported missing in the past year. Sarah Chen, 25 years old, disappeared while jogging in March. Lisa Anderson, 31. Never came home from her evening run in June. Their bodies were never found. Marcus Webb refused to tell police what happened to them. He just smiled and said nothing. He's now in prison for 25 to life. But those 2 women are still missing. Jennifer moved away from Portland the next month. She changed her name. She deleted all her social media. She doesn't run anymore. She can't. Every time she tries to exercise outside, she has panic attacks. She sees shadows that aren't there. She hears footsteps that don't exist. The detective who worked on her case, Detective James Morrison, told Jennifer something before she left town. He said, "You know what saved your life? Your instincts. That feeling you had that someone was watching you? That was real. Your body knew you were in danger before your brain did. Always trust that feeling. Always." He also told her something else. They checked Marcus Webb's notebook again and found entries from the day before the fog. He had written, "Tomorrow. The weather report says heavy fog. Tomorrow is the day." If Jennifer had ignored her fear that morning, if she had kept running instead of calling 911, she would be missing too. Just like Sarah Chen. Just like Lisa Anderson. Story 2, They Were Not Animals. Let's go to Vancouver, Canada now. Stanley Park is massive. It's got 1,000 acres of forest right in the middle of the city. During the day, millions of tourists visit. They take pictures, ride bikes, have picnics. But at night, even the locals stay away from the deep parts of the forest. Tom Bradley had been a park ranger for 15 years. He thought he had seen everything: drunk teenagers, homeless camps, lost tourists. Nothing surprised him anymore, or at least, that's what he thought until that night in November 2019. It was 11 p.m., and Tom was doing his last patrol. He was tired and ready to go home. Then his radio crackled to life. "Tom, we've got reports of strange noises near Beaver Lake. Sounds like a child crying. Can you check it out?" Tom sighed. This wasn't the first time someone reported crying in the forest. Usually, it was just an animal. Foxes can sound exactly like crying babies. It's creepy but normal. Tom grabbed his flashlight and headed into the forest. Beaver Lake is in the middle of the park, surrounded by thick trees. During the day, it's beautiful. At night, it's a different story. The trees are so thick that no moonlight gets through. It's completely black except for your flashlight. Tom followed a small trail toward the lake. He could hear the crying now. It definitely sounded like a child. A young child, maybe 5 or 6 years old, sobbing like they were hurt or scared. The sound was coming from deeper in the forest, away from any trails. Tom pushed through the bushes, following the sound. The crying was getting louder. He was getting close, but after walking for 20 minutes, something felt wrong. Tom stopped and listened carefully. The crying was exactly the same distance away as when he started. He had been walking for 20 minutes, but the sound hadn't gotten any closer. It was like the source of the crying was moving away from him at the exact same speed he was walking. Tom had been a ranger for 15 years. He knew every sound the forest made. And this wasn't right. He stood completely still and really listened. The crying continued, but now that he was paying attention, he noticed something. It was too regular, too perfect. The exact same cry, repeated over and over, like a recording on loop. That's when Tom noticed the silence. The forest was completely quiet. No insects buzzing, no owls hooting, no wind in the trees, nothing. Just that crying, echoing through the darkness. Every instinct Tom had was screaming at him to leave. Now, he turned around to head back to the trail, and that's when his flashlight caught them. Eyes. Dozens of pairs of eyes, glowing white in his flashlight beam. They were in a perfect circle around him, about 30 feet away. But these weren't animal eyes on the ground. These eyes were high up, 7, maybe 8 feet off the ground. Tom froze. He had never seen anything like this. The eyes weren't moving forward, but they were swaying slightly, like whatever they belonged to was shifting its weight from foot to foot. And then the clicking started. It sounded like someone tapping long fingernails on wood. Click, click, click. But it was coming from all around him. The eyes would click, then pause, then another set would answer. They were talking to each other. Tom's training kicked in. Don't run. Running triggers the chase instinct in predators. He hit his emergency beacon, which sent his location to dispatch, and started backing up slowly. He kept his flashlight moving in a circle, never focusing on one pair of eyes for too long. One step back, then another. The eyes followed, maintaining that perfect circle. When he moved, they moved. When he stopped, they stopped. It was like some horrible dance. Tom could see shapes now, tall, thin shapes behind the eyes. They were wrong. The proportions were all wrong. The arms were too long, hanging down past where knees should be. The heads were too small for the bodies, and they weren't standing straight. They were hunched, bent at weird angles, like they weren't used to standing upright. The crying had stopped. Now there was a new sound. Whispering, but not in any language Tom knew. It was fast, harsh, full of clicks and hisses. They were discussing something, discussing him. It took Tom an hour to back out of that forest. A full hour of those things following him, maintaining their circle, clicking and whispering. When he finally reached the main trail, the eyes stopped at the tree line. They wouldn't cross onto the path. They just stood there, swaying, watching. Tom sat down on the trail, his legs shaking so bad he couldn't stand. Backup arrived 15 minutes later. 5 rangers with bright lights and rifles. They found Tom sitting on the ground, unable to speak, just pointing at the forest. They searched the area. They found nothing. No tracks, no animals, no sign of anything unusual, except for one thing. Where Tom had been standing, in that perfect circle where the eyes had surrounded him, they found marks on the trees, deep gouges in the bark, about 8 feet up. The gouges looked like claw marks, but much bigger than any animal in the park, and they were fresh. The sap was still running. Tom quit the next week, but before he left, he filed a report. In it, he wrote something that the Park Service doesn't want people to know. This is not the first incident. Check the records from 1994. Ranger Patricia Wells reported eyes in the trees near Beaver Lake. She was told it was stress and encouraged to take leave. Check 2003. Ranger David Kim reported tall figures following him near the same area. He was transferred to another park. Check 2011. A family of 4 reported being surrounded by things that weren't animals while hiking after dark. Their report was dismissed. Tom continued. I've talked to the old-timers, the ones who've been here for decades. They all know about them. They call them the Watchers. They say they've always been here, long before the park, long before the city. They're usually content to watch. But sometimes, when someone goes too deep into their territory, they take them. I did my own research after talking to Tom. Between 1990 and 2020, 17 people have gone missing in Stanley Park, specifically in the area around Beaver Lake. Their bodies were never found. The official explanation is that they got lost in the dense forest. But look at the pattern. They all disappeared at night. They all reported hearing a crying child before they went missing. The most recent disappearance was in 2022. A photographer named Michael Chang went into the forest to take pictures of the moon through the trees. His camera was found the next morning. The last photo showed dozens of glowing eyes in the darkness. Michael was never found. The Park Service still says there's nothing unusual in Stanley Park. They say the crying is just foxes. They say the disappearances are just accidents. But they've also quietly closed several trails near Beaver Lake. They say it's for maintenance. The maintenance has been going on for 2 years now. Tom lives in Toronto now. He works as a security guard in an office building. No more forests. No more parks. He still has nightmares about that night. He still hears the clicking when he tries to sleep. Last month, he sent me an email with a link to a news story. Another person had gone missing in Stanley Park. A jogger who went for a run at dusk and never came home. They were last seen heading toward Beaver Lake. The Watchers are still there, still waiting in the darkness, still crying like children to lure people deeper into the forest. And they're getting hungrier. Story 3, The Woman in the Water. Now we go to Omaha, Nebraska. Memorial Park is right in the middle of the city, across from the hospital. It's a normal park with walking paths, benches, and a big fountain in the center. During the day, doctors and nurses eat lunch there. Kids play. People walk their dogs. But something happened there in July 2023 that changed everything. Rachel Thompson was 26 years old. She worked as a night shift nurse in the emergency room. It was hard work, stressful. She saw car accidents, heart attacks, all kinds of terrible things. So during her lunch break, she liked to go to the park to clear her head. It was Wednesday, July 19th, 2 a.m. Rachel was sitting on her favorite bench, eating a turkey sandwich and scrolling through her phone. The park was quiet. There were lights along the paths, and she could see Mike, the security guard, doing his rounds. Mike was a good guy, 45 years old, married with 2 kids. He always waved at Rachel when he saw her. They sometimes talked about the weather or complained about their jobs. Normal stuff. But tonight, Mike wasn't walking. He was standing completely still by the fountain, shining his flashlight at something in the water. Rachel called out, "Mike, everything okay?" He didn't answer. He didn't even move. He just kept staring at the fountain. Rachel got up and walked over. As she got closer, she could see what Mike was looking at. There was someone in the fountain. It looked like a person floating face down in the water. "Oh my God," Rachel said. "We need to call 911. "I already did," Mike whispered. His voice was shaky. "But look closer." Rachel looked. The person wasn't floating. They were standing perfectly straight in 3 feet of water, submerged up to their shoulders. Their back was to Rachel and Mike, and they weren't moving at all. "How long have they been there?" Rachel asked. 20 minutes, Mike said. "Haven't moved once. I've been calling out, but they won't answer." Rachel was a nurse. She dealt with medical emergencies every day. She stepped closer to the fountain. "Sir, ma'am, are you okay? Do you need help?" The figure spoke. The voice was wrong, wet, gurgling, like someone trying to talk with water in their lungs. "Rachel." It knew her name. "Rachel, come here. I need help." The figure started to turn around, slowly, so slowly. As it turned, Rachel saw its face, and she grabbed Mike's arm so hard she left bruises. The face was wrong. Everything about it was wrong. The eyes were too far apart, almost on the sides of the head. The nose was just 2 holes. The mouth was too wide, stretching from ear to ear. And the skin looked like it was melting, gray and white streams of flesh dripping down like candle wax. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the clothes. The figure was wearing scrubs, the exact same scrubs Rachel was wearing, the same color, the same size, even the same coffee stain on the left sleeve that Rachel had gotten earlier that night. Around its neck was an ID badge, Rachel's ID badge, with her picture, her name, everything. But Rachel was wearing her badge. She touched it to make sure. It was still there. The thing smiled. Its mouth opened wider and wider, showing too many teeth, way too many teeth. "I'm you now," it said in that wet, drowning voice. "You're in the water. You've always been in the water." It started walking toward them, not wading through the water like a normal person, walking on top of it, like the water was solid ground. Its feet didn't make splashes. They made wet, slapping sounds. Rachel and Mike ran. They ran back to the hospital, burst through the emergency room doors, screaming for security. 6 guards and 2 police officers came back to the fountain with them 5 minutes later. The fountain was empty, just normal water, nothing else. But at the bottom of the fountain, they found something, an ID badge, Rachel's ID badge, exactly like the one she was wearing. Same picture, same scratches, same everything. But when they scanned the barcode, it didn't come up as Rachel Thompson. It came up as Rebecca Taylor, a nurse who had worked at the hospital in 1987. Rebecca had drowned in that exact fountain 36 years ago. She had been working a night shift, went to the park on her break, and somehow fell into the fountain and drowned. It was ruled an accident. The security footage from that night is the most disturbing part. The hospital has cameras that can see the fountain. The footage shows Mike standing by the fountain. It shows Rachel walking over. It shows them talking, but the fountain? The fountain looks empty in the video. They're reacting to something that the camera can't see. Over the next week, things got worse. 7 different night shift workers reported seeing someone in the fountain, always at night. always standing in the water, always wearing scrubs. But here's the creepy part. Each person said the figure looked like them, wore their clothes, had their face. But wrong. Dr. James Lewis saw it on Thursday. He said it had his face but the eyes were black holes. Nurse Patricia Brown saw it on Friday. She said it had her body but the skin was see-through, and she could see water flowing inside instead of blood. Security guard Anthony Davis saw it on Saturday. He said it spoke to him in his mother's voice, asking him to come swimming. Rachel never went back to the park. She quit her job the next week and moved to Arizona. She thought she could escape it. She thought being in the desert, far from any water, would keep her safe. But it followed her. She started finding wet footprints in her apartment, water dripping from her ceiling even though the apartment above was empty. She would wake up at 2 a.m., the exact time she saw the thing in the fountain, and her bed would be soaked like someone wet had been lying next to her. Then came the whispers, the same wet, drowning voice, coming from her sink, her shower, any place with water. You can't run from water, Rachel. Water is everywhere. In the rain, in your body. You're mostly water, Rachel, and I'm in the water. Rachel stopped drinking water. She couldn't. Every time she tried, she would see that face in the glass. She ended up in the hospital, dehydrated and delirious. The doctors put her on N4, and she screamed the whole time, saying something was coming through the tube, through the water, into her veins. Last month, Rachel went for a walk in a park near her new home in Phoenix. She told her roommate she'd be back in an hour. That was 3 weeks ago. They found her clothes by a small pond in the park, folded neatly on a bench. Her shoes were placed perfectly side by side. Her phone was on top of the pile, still playing music. But Rachel was gone. The pond was searched. It was only 4 feet deep. She wasn't there. She wasn't anywhere. The fountain at Memorial Park was filled with concrete in September. The official reason was structural damage, but workers on the project reported something strange. They said that even as they poured the concrete, they could hear water moving underneath, splashing, like someone swimming. Now, even filled with concrete, people report seeing wet footprints around where the fountain used to be, walking in circles, like something is still trying to get out. The hospital changed the break policy. Staff are no longer allowed to go to the park during night shifts. They don't say why, but everyone knows. Because Rebecca Taylor is still in the water, and she's looking for someone to trade places with. Someone to take her place in the fountain. Someone to drown forever while she gets to live again. And maybe she finally found someone. Maybe she found Rachel. Story 4, The Children Who Never Left. Birmingham, England. Sutton Park is one of the biggest urban parks in all of Europe. It's got 2,400 acres of everything: woods, lakes, meadows, and one playground that nobody goes to after dark. The locals call it the Forever Playground, and once you hear this story, you'll understand why. David Chin moved to Birmingham from London in September 2020. He got a new job at a tech company and bought a nice house near Sutton Park. David had a dog, a big German Shepherd named Max. Max was a good dog, calm, friendly, never barked without a reason. On September 15th, around 9 p.m., David was walking Max through the park. It was a nice evening, cool but not cold. The sun had just set, and there were still a few people finishing their walks. David was thinking about work, not really paying attention, when Max suddenly started pulling hard on his leash. This was weird. Max never pulled. He was trained too well for that. But now he was pulling hard toward the children's playground, barking and whining. "Max, stop! What's wrong with you?" David said, trying to hold him back. That's when David heard it, the sound of squeaking swings. He looked at the playground. It was about 50 feet away, lit by a single streetlight that kept flickering. One of the swings was moving, back and forth, like someone was on it. But the swing was empty. David figured it was the wind. Had to be the wind. But the night was completely still. Not even a breeze. The trees weren't moving. Nothing was moving except that one swing. Then Max broke free. He pulled so hard the leash came right out of David's hand, and he ran straight toward the playground. David ran after him, calling his name, but Max wouldn't stop. As soon as David stepped into the playground area, everything changed. All 6 swings started moving, all of them, in perfect synchronization, same height, same speed, like invisible children were having a swinging contest. The merry-go-round started spinning, slow at first, then faster and faster. The seesaw began going up and down. The spring riders started bouncing. Every piece of equipment was moving like children were playing on it. But there were no children. The playground was empty. Then David heard the laughter. Children laughing, but it was wrong. It sounded like someone had recorded children laughing and was playing it backwards. It turned happy sounds into something evil, something that made David's skin crawl. Max had stopped at the edge of the playground. He was backing away, growling. His fur was standing straight up. In the 5 years David had owned him, he had never seen Max afraid, but Max was terrified. That's when David saw them. Shadows. Child-sized shadows on the ground. But there were no children casting them. The shadows were playing on the equipment. He could see them clearly in the flickering streetlight. A shadow going down the slide. Shadows on the swings. Shadows climbing on the monkey bars. David counted them. 9 shadows. 9 child-sized shadows playing in an empty playground. One of the shadows noticed David. It stopped swinging and stood up. Then another turned to look. Then another. Soon, all 9 shadows were standing still, facing him and Max. They started walking toward him. David's body finally unfroze. He grabbed Max's collar and ran. Behind him, he heard footsteps. Many footsteps. Small, quick footsteps like children running. But there was also a dragging sound, like something being pulled along the ground. David ran faster than he ever had in his life. Max was running too, pulling David along. They could hear those footsteps getting closer. And now there were voices, children's voices, but speaking backwards, saying words David couldn't understand but that sounded angry, hungry. They made it to David's car. He threw Max in the back, jumped in the driver's seat, and drove home. When he got there, he collapsed on his couch, shaking. Max hid under the bed and wouldn't come out for hours. David thought maybe he had imagined it. Maybe he was more stressed from the move than he thought. But then he looked at his jacket. There were handprints all over the back. Small, child-sized handprints in mud. But David hadn't felt anything touch him. He hadn't felt those hands. But they had been there. They had been trying to grab him. The next day, David did research. He had to know what he had seen. What he found made him wish he hadn't looked. In 1978, October 3rd, a school bus crashed on the road next to Sutton Park. It was carrying children from Riverside Primary School. They were going on a field trip to play in the brand new playground that the community had built just for them. People had raised money all year to build this special playground. 9 children died in that crash. They never made it to the playground. Their names were Emma Watson, age 7, James Miller, age 6, Sophie Brown, age 7, Oliver Jones, age 8, Lucy Wilson, age 6, Thomas Davis, age 7, Charlotte Taylor, age 8, William Moore, age 7, Emily Johnson, age 6. 9 children, the exact number of shadows David saw. But that wasn't all. David found newspaper articles going back decades. Strange things had been happening at that playground for years. 1985, a man named Robert Clark reported being chased by invisible children after walking through the playground at night. Police found him hiding in his car, crying. He said they wanted him to play with them forever. 1992, a woman named Sandra White said she saw shadow children playing after dark. She said they called her mommy and asked her to push them on the swings. When she ran, she found small handprints all over her car. 1999, a teenager named Kevin Park was found unconscious by the playground at 3 a.m. When he woke up, he couldn't speak for 3 weeks. When he finally did talk, all he would say was, "They're still playing. They'll never stop playing." 2006, a family's dog was found dead near the playground. The vet couldn't explain what killed it. The dog was covered in small handprints and had died of fear. Its heart had just stopped from terror. 2015, a jogger named Lisa Martin reported hearing children calling for help from the playground at midnight. She called police. When they arrived, they found her standing in the middle of the playground, pushing empty swings and talking to no one. She said the children were sad. They just wanted to play. David found something else, something that made him pack up and leave Birmingham the next month. He found a pattern. Every year, on October 3rd, the anniversary of the crash, someone goes missing near that playground. Every single year since 1978, the bodies are never found. But here's the really scary part. Sometimes, weeks later, people report seeing the missing person in the playground after dark, playing with the shadow children, pushing them on swings, helping them down the slide. But when anyone gets close, they disappear. David set up a camera before he left. He pointed it at the playground and let it record all night. He sent me the footage. I've watched it so many times, and I still can't believe what I'm seeing. At exactly 9:17 p.m., the time the bus crashed, the playground equipment starts moving. You can see the shadows clearly. 9 child-shaped shadows playing. They play for hours, laughing and running around. But at midnight, they stop. They line up in a row, and they wave at the camera, all 9 of them, waving slowly, like they know they're being watched, like they're saying hello, or goodbye, or maybe, see you soon. The last thing on the recording is the worst. At 3 a.m., a 10th shadow appears, an adult-sized shadow. It joins the children, pushing them on swings, playing with them, but this shadow is different. It moves wrong, like it doesn't want to be there, like it's being forced. David thinks it's one of the missing people, someone who got too close, someone who the children decided to keep. The playground is still there. Kids still play there during the day, but watch them carefully. Kids know things adults don't. They can feel things we can't. Watch how they act on that playground. They don't like the swings. They say someone else is already swinging. They don't go down the slide. They say someone is waiting at the bottom. They don't play on the merry-go-round. They say it's too crowded. Parents think kids are just being imaginative, but kids see them. Kids see the 9 children who never got to play, the 9 children who are still waiting for their field trip to end, the 9 children who will play forever. And if you go there after dark, if you're brave enough or stupid enough, you might see them too. But be careful, be very careful. Because they're looking for new friends. They've been playing with each other for over 40 years. They want someone new, someone who will stay. Someone who will play with them forever. Story 5, The Park That Shouldn't Exist. Let me tell you about the most terrifying story of all. This one happened just 2 months ago, October 2024, and the reason this story scares me more than all the others is simple. It's still happening, right now, as you're listening to this. The person who told me this story is named Yuki Tanaka. She's 25 years old and lives in Tokyo, Japan. Yuki makes videos about abandoned places. She explores old buildings, forgotten tunnels, places that people have left behind. She has over 100,000 followers on social media who love watching her adventures. But what happened to her in October changed everything. It made her quit making videos. It made her move back with her parents. It made her afraid to go outside after dark. It started with a message. Someone sent her an email with no name. Just a single line that said there's a park in Shibuya that only appears at 3 in the morning. Here are the coordinates. Then there were numbers. GPS coordinates. Nothing else. Now, Yuki knows Tokyo like the back of her hand. She was born there. She grew up there. She knows every street, every building, every corner, and she knew for a fact that there was no park at those coordinates. She checked on Google Maps. She checked old maps. She even called a friend who worked in city planning. Everyone said the same thing. Those coordinates led to a narrow alley between two office buildings. Nothing special. Nothing interesting. Definitely not a park. But something about that message stuck with her. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was the challenge. Or maybe it was something else. Something pulling her there. She decided to check it out. After all, what's the worst that could happen? It would just be an empty alley, right? She arrived at 2:45 in the morning. The streets were empty. Tokyo is never really quiet. But this part of Shibuya was dead at that hour. Just closed shops and dark windows. She found the alley easily. It was exactly what she expected. Narrow, maybe 3 feet wide, concrete walls on both sides, some trash bins, a few pipes, nothing special. She waited. 2:50, 2:55. She was starting to feel stupid. Someone had played a prank on her, made her come out in the middle of the night for nothing. She was about to leave when her phone clock hit 3 a.m. exactly. The air changed. That's the first thing she noticed. It got cold. Not normal cold. The kind of cold that goes right through your clothes and into your bones. Then she heard it. A sound like paper tearing, but louder. Much louder. The walls of the alley started to bend. Not break. Bend. Like they were made of rubber instead of concrete. The narrow alley opened up. Where there had been a dead end, now there was an entrance. Stone pillars appeared. A wooden gate materialized out of nowhere. And beyond that gate, Yuki could see a park. A real park. With trees and paths and benches. But it shouldn't exist. It couldn't exist. She had been standing in that exact spot 30 seconds ago and there had been nothing but a wall. She started recording on her phone immediately. Her hands were shaking but she needed proof. She needed to show people this was real. She stepped through the gate and the temperature dropped even more. Her breath came out in white clouds. In October, in Tokyo, that's not normal. The park was beautiful but wrong. Everything about it was wrong. There were cherry blossom trees, which was impossible because cherry blossoms bloom in spring, not fall. But these trees were in full bloom. Pink petals falling like snow, and the petals were glowing, actually glowing, giving off a soft pink light that made everything look like it was underwater. She walked deeper into the park. The path under her feet was made of white stones that crunched with each step, but the sound was delayed. She would take a step, and the crunch would come a second later, like the sound was catching up to her movements. There was a pond to her left with a red bridge over it. The water was black, not dark, black, like looking into a hole in the world. But it was the playground that made her stop walking. In the middle of this traditional Japanese park was a modern playground. Bright plastic slides, metal monkey bars, spring riders shaped like animals. But all the colors were wrong. The red slide was green. The blue climbing frame was orange. The yellow spring rider was purple. Like someone had built a playground from a negative photograph. And there was a child on the swings. A little girl, maybe 7 years old, wearing a school uniform, black skirt, white shirt, red backpack still on her shoulders. She was swinging back and forth, but way too high. The chains should have snapped. The swing should have flipped over, but she just kept going higher and higher, her long black hair flying behind her. Yuki called out in Japanese, "Are you okay? Where are your parents?" Her voice echoed strangely, bouncing off nothing, coming back distorted. The girl stopped swinging but didn't turn around. When she spoke, her voice came from everywhere at once. From the trees, from the ground, from inside Yuki's own head. We've been waiting so long for someone new to play with. That's when Yuki saw the others, children, coming out from behind trees, climbing out from under the bridge, rising up from the black water of the pond. Dozens of them, all different ages, 5 years old, 10 years old, teenagers, all wearing school uniforms but from different times. Some looked modern, others looked like they were from the 1980s, some even older, maybe from the 1940s. None of them had eyes. Where their eyes should be was just smooth skin, like their eyes had never existed at all. They started moving toward her, not walking. Their feet didn't touch the ground. They glided, floated, all of them reaching out with their small hands, all of them speaking at once. Play with us. Stay with us. You can't leave. No one leaves. We're so lonely, so cold, so hungry. Yuki ran. She turned and ran faster than she had ever run in her life. But the park had changed. The entrance was gone. The gate had disappeared. Where she had come in was just more trees, more paths. The park went on forever in every direction. She was live streaming all of this. Thousands of people were watching her panic, watching her run in circles, watching the children get closer and closer. People in the chat were screaming at her to get out, to call the police. But how do you call for help from a place that doesn't exist? The children were everywhere now, blocking every path, surrounding her. The little girl from the swing was right in front of her. This close, Yuki could see that where her eyes should be. The skin was moving, rippling, like something underneath was trying to get out. "Don't you want to play?" the girl asked. Her mouth didn't move when she talked. The voice just came from that smooth, eyeless face. "We have such fun games. Hide and seek, but you can never be found. Tag, but you're always it. Red light, green light, but the light never turns green." More children pressed closer. Their hands were so cold, ice cold, leaving frost on everything they touched. One grabbed Yuki's jacket. Another touched her hair. She could feel the cold spreading through her body, making it hard to move, hard to think. "You'll like it here," they said. "After a while, you forget the sun, you forget warmth, you forget you ever wanted to leave. You just play, forever and ever and ever." That's when Yuki noticed something. Her phone, the clock. It was 3:59. The park only existed between 3 and 4. One more minute and... The children noticed too. They grabbed her harder, pulled her down, tried to hold her there. The little girl's voice turned angry, desperate. "No, you have to stay. We need you. We need someone new. The park needs fresh players. If you leave, one of us has to go. One of us has to go back to the dark. Please, please." The clock hit 4 a.m. The world tore apart. The sound was incredible, like reality itself was screaming. The park folded in on itself. Trees twisted into impossible shapes. The ground cracked and split. The children were pulled backward, sucked into the collapsing space, their mouths open in silent screams. Yuki was thrown out, literally thrown. She landed hard on concrete, back in the alley, gasping for air. The walls were normal, solid, real. No gate, no park, just an alley. Her phone was still recording. The timestamp showed she had been gone for exactly 1 hour. But the video file was 6 hours long. 6 hours of footage from a 1-hour experience. The police found her there at sunrise, curled up in a ball, unable to stop shaking. They took her to the hospital. Doctors said she was in shock, suffering from hypothermia, which made no sense because it had been a warm night. Her hands had frostbite. In October, in Tokyo. But the video was proof. Thousands of people had watched it live. They saw the park. They saw the children. They saw everything. But when people went to find the stream, it was gone, deleted. No copies existed. Even people who had recorded it found their files corrupted, empty, like the park itself. The evidence just wasn't there anymore. Yuki told me there's more to the story. The children told her things while she was there, showed her things. The park isn't just one park. It moves, every night. It appears somewhere else in Tokyo, sometimes in Shibuya, sometimes in Shinjuku, sometimes in Harajuku, always between 3 and 4 a.m., always in a different alley or empty lot or forgotten corner. The children were real ones. They were kids who found the park, kids who went in to play, kids who stayed too long. Now they're part of it, trapped. The park feeds on them, uses them as bait to lure in more children, more players for its endless, horrible games. But here's the worst part, the part that Yuki didn't want to tell me. The children made her a deal before she escaped. They said they would let her go if she promised to send them someone else, someone younger, someone who wouldn't be missed right away. She said no. She refused. She escaped without making the deal. But the park doesn't forget. Every night at 3 a.m., no matter where she is, Yuki sees things. Cherry blossoms falling in her room, playground equipment and reflections that shouldn't be there. And sometimes, just sometimes, she hears children laughing, playing, calling her name. Last week, something terrible happened. Yuki's little sister, Mio, went missing. She's 8 years old. She was supposed to be at a sleepover with friends, but she never made it there. Security cameras show her walking toward an alley at 2:58 a.m., the same alley where Yuki had found the park. Yuki knows where her sister is. She knows what she has to do to get her back. Go back to the park, play their games, take her sister's place. But she also knows that if she goes back, she won't leave this time. The park won't let her escape twice. She's running out of time to decide, because the children told her one more thing, something that keeps her awake every night. They said the park is growing, getting stronger. Soon it won't need to hide. Soon it won't be limited to 1 hour. Soon it will be everywhere, all the time. And here's what really terrifies me, what made me almost not include this story. After Yuki told me everything, I did my own research. I found reports from other cities, London, New York, Paris, Sydney, Los Angeles. Similar stories, parks appearing at 3 a.m., children with no eyes, playgrounds where time doesn't work right. It's not just in Tokyo, it's spreading, city by city, country by country, and no one knows how to stop it. No one knows what it wants. No one knows where it came from. All we know is that it's out there, right now, waiting for 3 a.m., waiting for someone curious enough or stupid enough or desperate enough to enter, waiting to add more children to its collection. Yuki gave me one last warning before she stopped responding to my messages. She said the park knows about people who know about it. It doesn't like being exposed. It doesn't like being talked about. Sometimes, people who share the story start seeing things too. Cherry blossoms where there shouldn't be any. Children in the corner of their eye. Playgrounds in their dreams. So if you start seeing these things after watching this video, whatever you do, don't follow them, don't investigate, and definitely don't go looking for the park. Because once you find it, once you enter, you become part of the game. And the game never ends. So there you have it. 5 absolutely true stories from parks around the world. Stories that prove that the places we think are safe, the places we go to relax and have fun, might be the most dangerous places of all. The watcher who stalked his victims for months, planning the perfect moment to strike. The things in Stanley Park that have learned to copy our voices, to lure us deeper into the woods. The fountain that creates copies of people, replacing them with something that should not exist. the shadow children still trying to reach the playground they never got to play on, and the park that exists outside our reality, collecting children for games that never end. What do all these stories have in common? They all happen to regular people. People just like you and me. People who were just trying to enjoy a nice day at the park. People who ignored that little voice in their head that said something was wrong. People who found out too late that monsters are real, and they don't always hide in the dark. Every single person I interviewed for these stories told me the same thing. They said they wish they had listened to their instincts. That first moment when something felt off, when the hair on their neck stood up, when their body told them to run, that was their chance to escape. But they ignored it. They told themselves they were being silly. They didn't want to seem paranoid or scared. Don't make that mistake. Your instincts exist for a reason. There are thousands of years of evolution telling you when you're in danger. When you feel watched, you probably are. When you hear something that doesn't sound right, it probably isn't. When every cell in your body is screaming at you to leave, leave. I want to leave you with one final thought, one final warning. While researching these stories, I discovered something that chilled me to my core. Every single one of these incidents followed a pattern. They all happened during specific times. The watcher struck during the early morning when parks are empty. The things in Stanley Park are most active on foggy nights when visibility is low. The fountain incidents happen during the late night shift. The shadow children appear after dark. And the impossible park only exists for 1 hour when the city sleeps. These aren't random. These things, whatever they are, they know when we're most vulnerable. They know when we're alone. They know when no one will hear us scream. They've learned our patterns, our routines, our weaknesses, and they're using them against us. So the next time you're in a park, pay attention, look for the signs. Trust your instincts, and remember that sometimes, the most ordinary places hide the most extraordinary dangers. Sometimes, the real monsters aren't in horror movies or scary stories. Sometimes, they're waiting on the jogging trail, playing on the swings, standing in the fountain, hiding in the woods. Sometimes, they're right behind you. Thank you for watching. If these stories kept you up tonight, if they made you think twice about your morning jog or evening walk, then share this video with someone who needs to hear these warnings. Subscribe to the channel for more true horror stories from the places you thought were safe. And remember, the next time you're in a park and something doesn't feel right, don't investigate. Don't be curious. Don't be brave. Just run. Because not everyone who enters the park gets to leave. Not everyone gets to tell their story. Not everyone survives to warn others. Sweet dreams, and stay out of the parks.